I know we have a lot of experts here in the room. You have the unfortunate opportunity to meet victims of whether it's impaired driving, drunk driving. We have Brian Swift here today, who you'll soon meet. And for me and my role and my responsibility, I want to make sure that everything that we do really makes a difference. And I think what we're doing here today is a building block that will truly, truly save lives. So why are we here? And thank everybody for coming. You know, responsibility.org believes that to address the complexities of traffic safety and substance abuse, drunk driving included, you know, it takes a 360 approach, and we're going to need the expertise and the support of everyone. The National Alliance to Stop Impaired Driving was created ultimately to save lives and bring in expertise from disciplines in the DUI side of things to address all forms of impaired driving, regardless of the substance. Multiple substance impaired driving is especially risky. I mean, they're all risky, of course. In 2018, 50.5% of fatally injured drug-positive drivers with known drug test results were positive with 2 or more drugs in their system. 40.7% were found to have alcohol in their system. Responsibility.org was founded 30 years ago, and one of its core missions is to eliminate drunk driving. I mean, that mission has not changed, and we still have a long way to go in that regard. Well over 10,000 plus people die every year on our roads related to drunk driving. But we also recognize, and with everybody being here, we also have to get after impaired driving and multi-substance abuse as well. And that's going to take a lot of work and a commitment by all of us in the room. NASID allows us to expand the portfolio and really roll up our sleeves and get after this long-standing problem, but one that is also an emerging, rising challenge that we're going to have to contend with. I'm all in with this work, and I'm honored to welcome you in the nation, as y'all are the nation's top experts, to launch NASID and work together to end impaired driving. This conference is in collaboration with GHSA and AAA Foundation. When I drove to DC, I got to say this. My daddy gave me a AAA book, you know, to ride up. Sorry, a triptych. Y'all remember those? They don't have those anymore. I guess not, you know, but nevertheless. But they are invaluable partners to create the agenda, identify the topics, speakers, messaging, and really supporting the foundation in the formation of the Alliance. So thank you both, Jonathan Atkins and Russ Martin, GHSA, Jill Ingresia and Jake Nelson with AAA. And as we've gained momentum to build NASID and to make this a formidable coalition, we're so honored to have a number of members and sponsors who have also heard the call. Could all of our sponsors and members please stand up if you could? Just do this. I hate when this happens, but just go ahead and do it if you could. Thank you all very, very much. So conference sponsors like Draeger, Intoxilock, Intoximeters, Lyft, the Change Companies, and there's a whole list of sponsors and supporters in the program, so please check that out. Today, we formally launch NASID as an organization founded by Responsibility.org, and I'm proud to be here to do that today, ultimately to help fight multiple substance impaired driving. Thank you for joining us in person. It's been a weird year and a half. We weren't certain we were going to be able to pull this off. I know some of you are here virtually as well. And let us build the national framework to tackle multi-substance impaired driving. It's going to take a team effort. So with that, Let me introduce Darren Grindel. He's the Vice President of Government Relations and Traffic Safety for Responsibility.org. And, this is going to be a team effort, and every life matters. And I know what we're doing here today is ultimately going to help us save lives in the future. And thank you for being here and working with us on this. Thank you. Darren?
Thank you, Chris, or I should say thank you, boss. As you know, the vision for the National Alliance to Stop Impaired Driving started over a year ago, and the work has commenced to make this alliance a reality. And so, Chris, thank you very much for your leadership, your support, and having Responsibility.org really take the lead in this effort. And so you can't do anything alone. It takes a lot of folks. You've heard the term, it takes a village. It really takes all of us to be able to get where we want to go. But I also wanted to just take a second to thank the amazing staff from Responsibility.org and Discus who are here, who have helped us. So I will embarrass you by you all standing up. All right, come on, come on. For the last year, we've been working on this, but we've been working on it from this. And so everybody, it's kind of that square box that we see everybody in. And so it's so nice to be able to be together. Being able to see the team that we have with Responsibility.org and Discus, being able to see kind of we're small but mighty. And so I just want to say thank you for all the work that's gone into this to make this day a reality. We were going to do this last year. That didn't work out. We had this strange pandemic that hit us, and then we were going to do it in October. And then we're never going to get able to do this. And then finally, here we are. And so I just want to say thank you and welcome to all of you here in person. We have close to 120 people that had registered for in person. We have over 200 online. So all of you that are online, welcome. We are excited to have you on as part of this conference because we have a lot of work to do. As was mentioned, I'm Darren Grindel. I'm the Vice President of Government Relations and Traffic Safety for Responsibility.org. Just by way of background, I spent 25 years with the Washington State Patrol, and then I spent 8 years as the State Highway Safety Office. And I'm just very proud to have had that experience, and I'm excited to see my replacement, who's done a much better job than I will have ever done, Shelley Baldwin from Washington. So it's nice to see some of the familiar faces that are here in the room. I also had the opportunity to serve for many years with the Governor's Highway Safety Association on the executive committee, there as secretary and as chair. And to see all of the faces once again here in the room, it's just like a coming home week. So I just really appreciate your attentiveness, your support, the commitment, the passion that you have all demonstrated on this particular topic, because this has a huge impact. Now, nearly a year ago, I should say maybe over a year ago, in addition to the pandemic, I started hearing voices. It's a confession I'm making. I know what you're thinking. Voices, Darren? Really? Well, these voices were very powerful. Some of these voices were you here in this room. Some of you that are online. Some of these voices were from the past, the present, and the future. Voices of some of our victims speaking from the dust. Our victims' families that are here with us. And that message was very clear to me through the work we've been doing. And you know this phrase, if you build it, they will come. If you build it, they will come. That imagery keeps resonating with me over and over. And as I stand here, you have emerged from the cornfield. I hope all of you know the movie I'm talking about, The Field of Dreams. If you don't know what I'm talking about, rent it tonight. But as I saw this, this imagery in my mind, as I saw the subject matter experts, some of you as researchers, advocates, law enforcement, prosecutors, judges, treatment folks, people just interested in this topic to help make a difference. Folks from the federal, state, local, tribal, all of those, all coming from the cornfields and seeing this. And I really was kind of resonating with this because when I hear about the victims and the victims' families and the impacts that have is that we will never forget and always pay tribute to those. And I will tell you, we are here today as a result of a victim who never gave up, kept pushing and pushing. And you're going to hear more about that in just a few minutes. I know this isn't about baseball or building a stadium, but really what this is about is building a coalition of partners and folks that will help us to challenge and really look at ourselves and what we're doing, how we're doing it, and really making some significant differences. I was just asked the other day, yesterday and actually this morning, we had some opportunities to do some interviews with ABC and NBC. And so we're very fortunate for that. And I was asked the question, why now? You know, for all of us in this room, we would all argue, you know, drug driving's been around a long time. Why now? Well, I think ultimately with some of the issues around legalization and some of the issues we have with drugs in this country is really looking at the impacts that it's having on our roadways. So why not now? Why not bring us together? Why not bring all of those folks together? I was just sharing earlier today, this wasn't originally in my notes, but I'll share it with you anyways. My wife was given a wagon wheel the other day from her sister, and I thought, now that's an interesting gift. But was interesting was in the hub was a very personal saying, and then it had my mom and dad's wedding date, my parents or my wife's wedding marriage date, our wedding date, and then our 10 kids' birth dates with the on the spokes. And I thought, NASID is that. We are the hub to help bring all of us together to roll together in the things that we need to do. I just wanted to let you know that the speakers today will be coming from 3 perspectives. Why is my topic important around multi and substance impaired driving? What are the greatest challenges? And what are your thoughts on how best to meet those challenges? Now, most of these conferences, you may come sit and listen. Not today. We want you to be rolling up your sleeves. We want you engaged. We want your head out of your apps. And that's a distracted driving comment. But we want you engaged with all of our panels as we go through this. I just so appreciate you being here, and we look forward to all the work that we can get done, because at the end of today and tomorrow, we want to have a national framework that we can build through NASID to help move some of these actionable items forward at all levels of government and at all levels across the country. So with that, I am honored now to introduce Jill Ingracia from AAA, and I will let you take the stage.
All right. Thank you, Darren. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the intro, and thanks to everybody for your participation, whether it's virtual or in person. It's great to see so many people in the flesh today, and I'm truly honored to be here in thinking about the important work that you're getting ready to tackle over the next 2 days. Our hope from AAA is that we can arrive at a set of near-term, realistic goals that, if we can meet them, can help push the nation towards more successful identification and adjudication of drug-impaired drivers, and then to reduce recidivism as well when that's possible. Over the last several years, I know all of us have witnessed the wave of states that have moved to legalize the recreational use of cannabis, and more recently, we've seen some efforts to liberalize other controlled substances. And I would say that seemingly without any consideration to the broader public health and safety considerations, including the concerns or the implications for transportation safety. From the traffic safety perspective, I think you're all too aware that solving this rapidly evolving problem is especially challenging and complex when multiple drugs, including alcohol, are contributing to observed impairment in a drug driver. And that's why AAA is pleased to team up with GHSA to support this important meeting of the minds here. And it's made possible by responsibility.org. So thank you, Darren. Thank you, Brandy, for your efforts to make this happen. I know we're all looking forward to sharing information and learning from each other. I would just reiterate one of the points that Darren just made. We ask that you please participate actively. Please be vocal, share your opinions and your thoughts, and help ensure that we conclude the meeting, that we come away from this 2 days with a set of prioritized actions. That's the goal, and that's what's most important. On behalf of AAA, I really want to thank all of you for showing up or being here virtually to help make the road safer for everyone who travels them every day, whether AAA member or not. My next official act, I would say, is to welcome a longtime highway safety leader and a good friend and partner to AAA, GHSA's Executive Director, Jonathan Atkins. First, some welcome as well.
Thank you, Jill and responsibility.org. Great to see lots of friends in the room today. Already hearing a theme about some things that have changed, some things that haven't. Thinking about in-person conferences, everything has changed, how we approach them. Something that hasn't changed. A lot of people are in the back of the room. There are a lot of empty tables at the front. So thinking about participation when we're on a break, come on down. Let's spread out a little bit and fill the room up. This is great. As Darren said, he is a former chair of the Governor's Highway Safety Association, a longtime friend. I have staffed Darren a lot of times, and something that hasn't changed is Darren went over his speaking time. You may have noticed somebody coming down flashing a 0. So amongst all this change the last couple years, it's nice to see my dear friend, something that hasn't changed. I told him I was going to give him a little bit of grief. And when you're friends with someone, you can do that. I'm delighted to be here on behalf of GHSA today. I'd be remiss not to note my chairman, Chuck DeWeese from Minnesota. Excuse me, it's been a while. Chuck DeWeese from New York. Mike Hansen, the guy who signs my paycheck, from Minnesota. I got that one right. We also have a couple of other governor's reps and staff members in the room, and a lot of people online. For folks who are online, there is a chat box, so we need you to participate. We want to hear what's working in your communities. What are we missing? Just because we're in the room doesn't mean we're the smartest people, probably just the opposite. So send in your thoughts, send in your comments. To sort of reemphasize what Jill said, in the last year and a half during the pandemic, our longtime struggles with drunk driving haven't ended. They've gotten worse. And then on top of that, we have new legalization, we have new drugs. A lot more people, particularly in rural areas, I grew up in West Virginia, are addicted to opioids, and there are a lot of challenges with impairment. So the Governor's Highway Safety Association is delighted to be here and really happy to help launch this new alliance. We've got to look at things differently. We can't just keep doing the same things that we've been doing and expect a different outcome. So looking forward to the discussion today. And with that, I'm nervously handing it back to Darren after I gave him grief.
You owe me a Coke Zero, Jonathan. So thank you very much. What I'd like to do is just to queue up for us Brian Swift, who is with us, and you're going to hear about him in just a few minutes, but he has become a dear friend. He and I have been able to do a lot of interviews together. We've been down to Dallas together, and I've gotten to know him very well. And so we'll do just a quick little intro for his video, if we can queue up the next slide. And we'll show this video, but Brian was impacted, and you're going to hear his story, which really is heartwarming, and you're going to see it all in this video. So I will be brief, be brilliant, be gone. So
like most people would say about their parents, they love their mom and dad, as I loved my mom and dad. There was nothing they would not do for their nephews, for their friends, for their family. On March 20th, 2013, I got that call that everybody dreads. A drugged driver who was driving a semi-truck on a suspended license ran through a red light, and my dad was killed instantly, and my mom died 3 days later. This kind of death, sudden death, and this kind of carnage that is going on our roads is the worst kind of death, because somebody chooses your fate for you. And to have somebody else, because of their irresponsible actions, The bad choices that they made to take somebody else's life is just inexcusable. And that is the reason I am so involved in making sure that nobody has to live, no other family has to live with what my sister and my nephews have to live with. I want to make sure that my friends, my family never have to say goodbye to somebody like we had to say goodbye to our parents. My name is Brian Swift, and I'm currently the CEO of the Tarrant County Medical Society here in Fort Worth, Texas. The great thing about NASID and why we created NASID is really it's a clearinghouse for a number of things. Number one, we get together the top policy people to work on things in states and across this country, in state legislatures and on the national scene, policies that we can enact into law that are going to save lives. We bring together those industry leaders from a technology side that are going to only get better at being able to detect people that are on the roads, and we are able to identify them. We're going to be a data-driven organization where we can house other states that are doing other pilot programs. We're going to be able to collect that data and have it all in one place. One of our focus will be on oral fluid testing. We know this technology works. We know that we have the ability to collect data and drive policy. And this device that we use does not detect alcohol, but it does detect things like prescription drugs, cocaine, heroin, THC, which is in marijuana, and it just says, is it in the system or not in the system? It's another tool in the toolbox that allows police officers to identify people and get them off the roads. That's what this whole effort is about. In the case of my mom and dad, when all this happened, you're in a state of shock, denial. You're just trying to deal with the loss of your parents. You don't have the energy to get out of bed. I think about those lonely days when I first started off on this journey to try to get some legislation passed. Whatever you feel on this issue, you have an opportunity to join our group and be part of what we're doing, trying to get those impaired drivers off the road. That's what our sole focus is about. Thanks, everybody. I want to thank everybody, obviously, that's here today in person and everybody out there virtually. I'm fairly new to this fight, but I want you to know I recognize your many contributions made over the years to stop impaired driving. Your passion, expertise, and advocacy has saved countless lives. I'd like to be another resource for you from a victim perspective and look forward to getting to know you all in person. Thank you to responsibility.org for sticking by my side and helping me get to this point with the launch of NASID. Chris, Brandy, Darren, so many others. Thanks really doesn't sum up my gratitude. If you could, I'd like everybody to imagine for a second that somebody you love, somebody you just talked to or texted, or maybe, if you're really lucky, you got to tell them in person you love them this morning. Now, at the snap of a finger or your blink of an eye, they're gone forever. You're never going to talk with them again, never hug them again, or kiss them again. Never enjoy another memory. Some of the last memories you don't want to remember, trust me. The vigil at their bedside, their battered bodies, the life support machine being turned off because it's time. It's really hard to wrap your mind around that, isn't it? For me, this scenario came true in March of 2013. I got the call to tell me that my dad was dead and my mom was being rushed to a hospital 70 miles from my hometown. I was told they were hit by a logging truck, and that's all the information I got. While in shock, I had to call my only sister, Patty, who had to tell my two young nephews of the breaking trauma. As Patty rushed to my mom's side from Wisconsin, I had to figure out a way to get from Fort Worth, Texas to Upper Michigan. No quick way to do that, I can tell you. I did finally make it back, as many of you know, but we would watch in agony while my mom would die from her multiple injuries 3 days later. Devastation, all in the matter of seconds. Life as I knew it changed forever. My parents worked hard all their lives. They were just starting to enjoy retirement. They were 73 years old, going on 50, and they were always on the go, hanging out with their many friends. They always helped others and could be counted on no matter what. They were beautiful people, inside and out. They were inseparable, even in death. My dad, he was our protector. He was smart and generous. He never missed a day of shift work at the paper mill. He always made people laugh with his sarcastic humor. He never missed a football game of mine, and we enjoyed golfing together. My dad was mentally strong, but would tear up at almost anything that made somebody else happy. He always sacrificed for his family. My mom was the best. She was kind and genuine. Everything my mom did, she made special for us. She was the head of the household, and my dad would call her the boss. She worked part-time to buy the extra little things for us kids. She insisted that we sit down as a family at dinner, and she'd never put a pan on the table. She'd always have to put it in a serving dish. My mom was a great cook, and my parents always loved to have people over for special meals. She was a great dancer. She loved cross-country ski, and she was a really, really bad joke teller. She would put her needs well down the list to help anybody else brighten their day. Nothing, of course, made my parents more excited than spending time with my two nephews, Jared and Joey. No drive was too far. Nothing was too goofy to participate in, as long as they got to spend time with them. I have so much more I'd like to tell you about Tom and Barb Swift and so many things my family and I wish we could have shared these past 8 years. But that's what sudden death takes from you. As I said in the video, this kind of sudden death is the worst because it's the kind of death that somebody else chooses for them because they're selfish and irresponsible actions. This kind of death can be prevented, and it's going to be the focus of NASID. Our nation has taken a giant step backward in road safety. Even though fewer people were on the roads in 2020, preliminary estimates tell us that traffic deaths increased 7%, and impaired driving was cited as one of the reasons. We need to take our roads back. We need to give tools to our first responders so they'll be able to stop this destruction before it happens. I'm like many victims out there who have experienced this kind of misery. We don't aspire to have a law named for them, or a scholarship, or a memorial established in their name. My mom and dad are just like many others who are real people with real families. And we just want to make sure other people don't have to walk in our shoes. Tragically, people like my mom and dad become nameless, faceless people. They get chalked up and become another statistic that fades from memory, except from their loved ones. I think the stages of death or grief and advocacy are kind of similar in a way. I experienced denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance in like 10 minutes. But I want to offer this comparison. For me, there's been 3 main stages, and I think a lot of victims can relate to this. First, you're trying to deal with the reality. You suffer, you cry, you experience depression and profound grief. They're gone. You realize life must go on without them. In the case of a vehicle crash and death, you want the details, mainly who is at fault. And you're forced almost immediately to move on to the second stage. In the second stage, you want to find out more details. Trust me, you want justice. Of course, justice will never come because you can't bargain to get your loved one back. You kind of move back and forth into this abyss and quickly learn that plea bargains are common, and most people can't muster the energy to fight for at least a little justice. In our situation, we did fight. We finally got a trial. The person that killed my parents were convicted of 6, 5 to 15-year felonies. He would serve less than 5 years. When I tell people that, they gasp. Their mouths open wide, and they say, "No way." But as victims, we have come to recognize this truth all too often. And then comes the third phase, and the place I've been for almost 6 years. It's the fight or jumping into the arena phase. This part's not natural for most people. It's not that they don't care or don't want to get in the fight. It's that they have no one place to turn. It's overwhelming and it seems impossible. I just happen to work in politics for a large part of my career, and I have a great network of friends who wanted to help. You should not have to be a victim or politician to have a voice. This is going to be a huge priority for me with NASID, to be a home for victims and to help them get in the fight if they want to, without being intimidated. We all know change starts at the local level in the states, and it's the easiest way to engage. So I did start at home in Upper Michigan with a state senator and friend of mine named Tom Casperson. We went to law enforcement and we asked them what they needed to help identify and get people off the road. And they said oral fluid testing would be a great tool for them. So we got to work. As I said, I have some great friends and I'm meeting more each day. They help me hone in and develop a plan. I resisted the temptation to try to take on the world because I felt so many factors led to my parents' death. People like Sarah Hubbard, who you've never met, a great friend and leading our charge in Michigan, and my great buddy, Mark Ruge. I tell you, everybody has to have a friend like Mark Ruge, and I hope you get to meet him someday because they continue to keep me focused. Soon after my advocacy efforts began, I received a letter of support from somebody called responsibility.org. I said, holy cow, somebody else supports what I'm doing. And I became more energized. Strangers became friends. Aaron, Fred, John, my friends from Abbott, Mike Sable from the National Sheriff's Association. In 2016, the Michigan legislature acted by creating a law named after my parents. I'm told it was groundbreaking because it was the first time a state legislature mandated and funded a two-phase oral fluid roadside testing program across the state. It's a model that other states could replicate. As part of our program in Michigan, the state police were responsible for administering the test, drug recognition experts administered the test, and refusal to submit to the test was a civil infraction. The results of our pilot were very impressive, and now we're working to make our law permanent. I've talked with many state police officers, and they said this effort has already saved lives. Oral fluid testing needs to be a tool in the toolbox, just like the breathalyzer is. We need to make it easy for states to take model legislation like we have in Michigan and make it their own. Drunk driving and drug driving are incredibly dangerous, but now states are seeing increases in multi-substance impaired drivers who are ever more present on our roads. You all know it, and for those that don't know it, we will educate them and show them we can do something about it now. Over the past few years, a small informal group in Michigan under the leadership of responsibility.org has worked together. Today, we take that effort to the national level with the launch of the National Alliance to Stop Impaired Driving. Thank you to our new members, our sponsors, and partners that have already joined, and we look forward to adding many more. Your voice and expertise are vitally important. I welcome legislators, agencies, corporate entities, everyone and anyone who wants to champion these efforts. NASID will take a leadership role in this effort. When you look at other countries like Canada and Spain, the UK, technologies like oral fluid testing are common. Many other countermeasures also need to be implemented to effectively address this issue. Our legislators must stop being reactive and start getting proactive. We don't have to continue to suffer these deadly consequences. Tackling multi-substance impairment on the road is an issue that everybody can get behind. It crosses political parties. It knows no bias. It has nothing to do with race or gender or the age of a person. We all know somebody who's lost at least a friend or a community member to an impaired driver. Our most innocent, our kids, don't stand a chance when a vehicle or truck is barreling down towards them, or when they're riding with impaired drivers, which unbelievably is all too common. The average drunk driver has been impaired approximately 80 times before being caught. Impaired drivers typically have substance use disorders, and many also have untreated, undetected mental health disorders. As states work to reform their criminal justice systems, I urge a more comprehensive and collaborative approach. My day job is CEO of the Tarrant County Medical Society. If physicians only treated the first condition they saw, a misdiagnosis would be likely. They must look at the whole patient, break down silos, and collaborate with other specialists to fix the problem. There are parallels with the criminal justice system as it relates to impaired driving. The offender must be carefully examined to identify the underlying factors contributing to the crime, and then we must address them. Work with others to do so and avoid looking for the easy way out. In my opinion, criminal justice reform does not include expungement of DUI crimes. We cannot tolerate judges and lawyers and legislators who view first and second and third DUI offenses as not being related. After so many years of progress, we can't fall backwards. These crimes need to be taken seriously because those DUI offenses are a chance to change behavior so that the crashes, injuries, and killing of innocent motorists will finally end. I know many people here have devoted their entire careers to this issue, and they share my passion and are working to train their colleagues. So thank you for your commitment on that. Count me in on reform that does not include choosing to get in a vehicle and putting others at risk of death or injury. We all know people are not going for a walk around the block or sitting at home in their basement while impaired. They're getting on the road. Let's give people who need help with addiction the support they need, but also educate them to stay off our roads. NASID will prioritize a national action plan. We will convene the nation's foremost experts and influencers this week to deal with the complexities of multi-substance impaired drivers. We will focus on emerging technologies, toxicology expansion, adjudication and remediation, model legislation, and changing behaviors. As I mentioned before, I want to give victims a place to be heard and help them with local, state, and federal advocacy efforts. I believe part of their healing process begins with a home for them, and I'm going to be there for the victims. In closing, we loved our mom and dad, and we want to make sure other families do not have to live with the pain we have experienced. I've been able to smile the last few years because I feel I have a purpose. I'm working on this issue for my family, for my friends, and on behalf of people I don't even know. Out of tragedy comes change. And you guys know that better than anybody, that death can come quickly. It can happen to all of us. It can happen. It did happen to me and my family. Thank you.
We'd like to thank our panel and for all their opening remarks and their support and their partnership. So thank you, and you may join the rest of the crowd for our next phase. So if we can get my mic hot, I would like to just come down here because I hate stages and I hate podiums. So one of the things that I wanted to make sure that you are fully versed in is when we talk about the launch of the National Alliance to Stop Impaired Driving, we're talking about an organization. We have an organization that we have created through this with a mission statement, and I'm not going to read this whole thing because I hate when people sit and read their slides, but really the National Alliance to Stop Impaired Driving is really focused and working to eliminate all forms of impaired driving. Now, we also have on these signs here 7 areas that we're going to be focusing on specifically. Once again, I'm not going to read all of them. You can see those, but a lot of these are really about how do we prioritize multi-substance impaired driving at a federal, state, and a local level. And even for some communities where I worked out in Washington State is our tribal communities as well. So we have all of these things that we are looking at from all of the various disciplines across the entire DUI system. So it's not just making a decision to train officers to be A-RIDE. That's great. Then we're going to train a lot of officers to be DREs. Well, that's great, but let me ask you the question. Once you've done that, what's the impact on the lab? What's the impact on prosecution? So looking at the whole thing, so when you make a decision upstream, how does it impact down? And we're working through that and all the various resources. We have the purpose is really to be the national leader. As an organization, it's not us, or me, or just responsibility.org. It's all of us. And how do we be those leaders to identify and promote solutions to impaired driving? We have some various technology issues that are out there. We've talked about oral fluids today, talked about in-car things that we can be utilizing through, we have the ride and the halt act. We have other things that are being discussed that are out there, other technologies. What are some things that we can do as far as training and things that we can do as far as some advocacy efforts, public awareness, and education? So those kind of the mission and the purpose. As a result, we have created a charter. We actually have moved the logo into getting it as a trademark. So it'll be kind of cool. I have a little R next to the NASID. So something I've never done before. I've actually been going down a whole path where it's like lights just sometimes come on. You don't know if there's something or a cliff at the end of it, but you're seeing all of these things come together. So a lot of our goals, as you see here, are kind of aligned to our 7 purposes, but is establishing that drug multi-substance impaired driving as a top priority, persuade the public and decision makers to expand drug testing. Because what we're seeing, obviously you're gonna hear about this today, and a part of it tomorrow, is in some labs, do they actually test full panels, or are they only just testing for a small amount? Are we actually testing for some of the new substance, some of these more exotic, trending, am I still on? But some of those things, but looking at how do we help to improve the whole system and looking at impairment. I hate the drugged versus drunk driving. It's really about impairment. I don't care what the substance is. It's all about impairment. And so how do we help people? I've been doing quite a bit of work with some various employers because they're like, how do I know if my driver's under the influence? I don't even know what to look for. So how do we help educate that next line and those people? Build champions for this, convene influence of state. One of the things, and I want to put this in your heads, is one of the things that I would love to do is be able to do some workshops around the country on oral fluid, green labs, phlebotomy or whatever. We're going to hear all about all those kind of cool things today. But how do we do those and where can we go? What are some of our top priorities? And as we build out our strategic plan for this group, is what will be our top priorities and where are some of those areas that we need to focus? Because obviously we can't hit all 50 states, but what is our top priorities in policy or in regulation and things like that? So this is just kind of a visual concept. Maybe you can kind of see my wagon wheel. It wasn't really meant to be a wagon wheel, but I'll use the imagery anyway. But responsibility.org made up from a variety of partners, influencers. It doesn't matter. What we want is those that are passionate about making change is to be a part of this. Then looking at NASID from the promoting technology, public awareness, training, state implementation, policy, and legislation. Those are some of the key areas that we would be focusing on. Now, we are looking at, right now we'll have the steering committee. We will have board membership. And I know I have like 2 minutes left, but after this conference, we will have everything lined out as far as the steering committee and the board, because we've just received some signatures for acceptance for being members with NASID. So there's lots of new members. The one member that you will not see that just signed today, and where is Mike Sable? There he is the National Sheriff's Association, who's just come on as an allied member. So we're very excited about that. We have a couple that are here in the room I can't mention, but as soon as we get things settled and ratified, there'll be some additional announcements. So we're excited for that. As a result of today, we want to take the strategic plan and identify some very specific themes and then build out maybe some very specific subcommittees. Maybe one does oral fluid, maybe one does on public education. Maybe there's another element that we learn from this group that we do as a subcommittee. We will have 3 different levels of membership. One is advocates, advisors, and allies. Most of the allies are those that are in a 501c3 nonprofit that are not able to do government, what's that? Lobbying, thank you. That was the word I was trying to say, but my cotton mouth couldn't get there. So, but they're precluded from that, so we wanted to firewall them off to allow them to be members at times. If there's lobbying efforts, then we'll recuse them. Brian Swift will be our spokesperson, and the alliance coordinator currently is me. And as I hope that we grow this, that we can actually expand the ability to manage what we have with NASID to be able to provide greater resources and information for you. So that is kind of the information for NASID. I will now turn it to, if you have any questions on that one, you can talk to me in greater detail. You should have also received a little sheet that is how to join NASID. It's a one-pager that should have all been distributed and seen with that. And if you have any questions, you can ask me. So with that, before I get shepherd crooked off the stage, I will now turn it over to Karen Sprattler to kind of outline everything from here.
Thank you, Darren. I am going to be serving today and tomorrow as the person who is probably, the come back into the room, please get off the stage, you've been talking too long, that really popular person, but you can talk to me anyway, even if if I'm mean to you. But I think what's exciting about being here today, not only are the chance to address this really serious societal issue, but we have the experts in the room and the experts joining us virtually. And so this is going to be a conversation today made up of a number of panels of some of these experts, some of these players in this multifaceted issue that we know is not going to be solved by one single silver bullet. It's never been that way. Anytime you have a complex issue, it takes a lot of help, it takes that village that we've talked about. And so we are going to start today with a panel that kind of will set the table for this entire issue. And then we will work through the agenda, culminating at the end of today, when we will come up and we're going to have a conversation again, all of us together, talking about how do we prioritize some of the things we hear about, and what are the elements of that national strategic framework that we've heard about already so far. So with that, I would like to ask to come up to the stage Moderator Christine Frank with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and Christine Moore with 9 Delta Analytical to talk about why impaired driving demands a multi-substance approach.